The pounding on her door jolted Evelyn awake. Still groggy from the night's sleep, she peeked through the curtains and felt her heart sink. It was the HOA president, his face twisted in rage. "Turn off those lights, or we'll fine you," he screamed. Evelyn stared at the twinkling Christmas display that covered her house, a labor of love she looked forward to every year. But this time, it had put a target on her back. Little did the HOA know, Evelyn was about to turn the tables in the most delicious way. Evelyn opened the door, trying to maintain her composure. "What's the problem, Harold?" "The problem?" Harold sneered. "Your lights are a violation of our neighborhood code. They're tacky, over the top, and a waste of energy. Take them down immediately, or we'll fine you $500 a day until you comply." Evelyn felt her face flush with anger. "These lights bring joy to my family and our entire community. How dare you bully me like this?" "It's my job to enforce the rules," Harold said, his eyes narrowing. "You have 24 hours. As Harold stormed off, Evelyn closed the door and leaned against it, her mind racing. She had spent weeks painstakingly hanging those lights, carefully selecting each bulb and meticulously placing every cord. It was her favorite holiday tradition, a way to spread cheer in a world that often felt so dark. She grabbed her laptop and began furiously typing. There had to be a way to fight back against the HOA's tyranny. After hours of research, she found a little-known loophole, a state law that prohibited HOAs from fining homeowners for holiday displays. Armed with this information, Evelyn marched to the next HOA meeting, ready for battle. "You can't fine me for my Christmas lights," she declared, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "It's against the law." Harold scoffed. "That law doesn't apply here. Our neighborhood code supersedes any state regulations." "Really?" Evelyn challenged, her eyes narrowing. "Because I've got a team of lawyers who would love to take a closer look at your bylaws." The room fell silent as the HOA board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Evelyn could see the wheels turning in Harold's mind, his confidence wavering. "Fine," he spat. "But you better take those lights down after the new year, or else." Evelyn smiled, a glimmer of triumph in her eyes. "Oh, I'll leave them up as long as I please. In fact, I think I'll keep them on all year round." As she turned to leave, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of power she had never experienced before. She had stood up to the HOA bullies and won. But little did she know, this was just the beginning of her fight for holiday freedom. The next morning, Evelyn awoke to the sound of her doorbell ringing incessantly. Peeking through the window, she groaned as she saw Harold and the rest of the HOA board standing on her porch, their faces contorted with fury. "What's the meaning of this?" Harold bellowed, waving a stack of papers in the air. Evelyn opened the door, a small smile playing on her lips. "Good morning, Harold. How can I help you?" "You know damn well what this is about," he growled, thrusting the papers towards her. "These utility bills are through the roof. Your lights are costing the neighborhood a fortune." Evelyn feigned surprise, taking the papers and glancing them over. "Well, that's curious. I was under the impression that the HOA was responsible for covering the cost of holiday decorations." Harold's face turned beet red. "That's not how it works, and you know it. Those lights are your responsibility." "Actually," Evelyn said calmly, "according to our neighborhood bylaws, the HOA is required to reimburse homeowners for any energy costs associated with seasonal displays. It's right here in Section 7, Paragraph 3. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence visibly crumbling. "That's ridiculous," Harold sputtered. "We've never had to do that before." "Well, times change," Evelyn replied, her tone dripping with triumph. "And it seems the law is on my side. So, unless you want to take this to court, I suggest you start cutting me a monthly check to cover the electricity for my lights." Harold opened and closed his mouth several times, resembling a fish gasping for air. Evelyn could practically see the gears turning in his head as he weighed his options. Finally, he let out a frustrated sigh. Fine, but this isn't over, Evelyn. Mark my words, we'll find a way to put an end to your little holiday display. As the HOA board members trudged back to their cars, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a surge of exhilaration. She had won the first round, but she knew Harold would be back, and she was ready for him. Closing the door, Evelyn turned her attention to the twinkling lights that adorned her home. "Don't worry, my prettiest," she murmured. "Mama's got your back." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity for Evelyn. She spent her days meticulously documenting every penny the HOA owed her for the electricity used by her Christmas lights, down to the last cent. She knew Harold and his cronies would be watching her like hawks, looking for any opportunity to pounce. But Evelyn was one step ahead. She had enlisted the help of a local energy auditor, who carefully measured the power consumption of her display and provided a detailed report. Armed with this data, Evelyn confidently marched into the next HOA meeting, ready to demand her monthly reimbursement. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice calm and steady. "I'm here to discuss the energy costs associated with my holiday lights." Harold leaned back in his chair, a smug expression on his face. "Yes, we're well aware of the situation. What do you want, Evelyn?" "According to the energy audit I've conducted, the cost of running my lights for the past month was $127.54, Evelyn stated, handing out copies of the report. "I'm here to request that the HOA issue me a check for that amount, as per our neighborhood bylaws." The board members shuffled the papers, their brows furrowed in confusion. Evelyn could see the panic rising in Harold's eyes as he realized she had come prepared. "This is outrageous," he sputtered. "We're not going to pay you a dime." Evelyn raised a hand, silencing him. "Actually, Harold, you don't have a choice. The law is quite clear on this matter. If you refuse to reimburse me, I'll have no choice but to take you to court." The room erupted in a chorus of murmurs and hushed whispers. Evelyn could see the other board members shifting uncomfortably in their seats, clearly unsure of how to proceed. Finally, one of the younger members, a woman named Sarah, spoke up. "I think we need to take a closer look at this. Evelyn has provided a detailed report, and the law does seem to be on her side." Harold glared at Sarah, his face beat red with anger. "This is ridiculous. We can't just hand out money to every homeowner who wants to put up an excessive display." "Actually, Harold," Evelyn interrupted, a hint of triumph in her voice, "the law doesn't make any distinctions based on the size or extravagance of the display. As long as it's a seasonal decoration, the HOA is required to cover the energy costs." The room fell silent as the board members processed this information. Evelyn could practically see the wheels turning in their heads, weighing the consequences of defying the law. After what felt like an eternity, Harold let out a resigned sigh. "Fine. We'll issue you a check for the amount you requested. But this isn't over, Evelyn. Mark my words, we'll find a way to put an end to your little holiday display." As Evelyn left the meeting, a broad smile spread across her face. She had won another round, but she knew Harold wouldn't give up so easily. The battle for holiday freedom was just beginning. Over the next few months, Evelyn settled into a familiar routine. Every month, she would diligently track her energy costs and submit the invoice to the HOA, knowing full well that Harold and his cronies would fight her every step of the way. But Evelyn was undaunted. She had done her homework, and she knew the law was on her side. Despite Harold's snarky comments and the board's reluctant compliance, Evelyn held firm, refusing to back down. As the holiday season approached, Evelyn's Christmas lights display grew more elaborate than ever. She added new strands of twinkling bulbs, meticulously arranging them to create a dazzling spectacle that could be seen from miles away. And each time the HOA issued her a check, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. "That's right. Harold, she would whisper to herself as she cashed the checks. You can't stop me from spreading a little holiday cheer. But as the new year approached, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Harold was plotting something. His demeanor had become increasingly tense, and she had caught him whispering with other board members on several occasions. One frigid January morning, Evelyn opened her front door to find a stack of papers waiting for her. Furrowing her brow, she scooped them up and began to read. "What the?" she muttered, her eyes widening in disbelief. It was a proposed amendment to the HOA bylaws, one that would effectively ban any and all holiday displays that exceeded a certain wattage limit. Evelyn's heart raced as she scanned the document, her mind reeling with the implications. They can't do this, she cried, crumpling the papers in her fist. Evelyn knew she had to act fast. The HOA was planning to vote on the amendment at their next meeting, and she had to be there to fight it. Grabbing her laptop, she began furiously researching legal precedents and preparing her arguments. As the meeting date drew closer, Evelyn could feel the tension building. She knew Harold and his cohorts were determined to shut down her beloved Christmas display, and she was equally determined to stop them. When the fateful day arrived, Evelyn strode into the HOA meeting, her head held high and her eyes blazing with righteous fury. She was ready to do battle, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever. The room fell silent as Evelyn entered, her presence commanding the attention of every board member. She could feel Harold's eyes boring into her, his lips curled into a sneer. "Ah, Evelyn," he said, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "We were just about to discuss the proposed bylaw amendment regarding holiday displays." Evelyn stepped forward, her chin held high. "Yes, Harold, I'm well aware of your little plan, and I'm here to put a stop to it." She turned to the other board members, her gaze sweeping across the room. "This amendment is nothing more than a blatant attempt to silence me and strip away my right to celebrate the holidays as I see fit." Harold scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "It's not about silencing you, Evelyn. It's about maintaining the aesthetic integrity of our neighborhood. Those lights of yours are an eyesore, and they're costing us a fortune in energy bills. Energy bills that you are legally obligated to reimburse me for," Evelyn shot back, her eyes narrowing. "And as for the aesthetics, I happen to think my display brings joy and holiday cheer to the entire community." "That may be so," Harold conceded, "but it's not your decision to make. This is a neighborhood, Evelyn, and we have to consider the collective good, not just the whims of one homeowner." Evelyn took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. "Well then, let's put it to a vote. If the majority of homeowners in this neighborhood want my lights gone, then I'll take them down. But if not, you'll have to learn to live with them." The board members exchanged uneasy glances, clearly caught off guard by Evelyn's proposal. Harold's face flushed with anger, but Evelyn could see the doubt creeping into his expression. "Fine," he spat. "We'll put it to a vote at the next neighborhood meeting. But mark my words, Evelyn, you're going to regret this." As the meeting adjourned, Evelyn felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had thrown down the gauntlet, and now the entire neighborhood would have its say. She knew it wouldn't be an easy fight, but she was more determined than ever to defend her right to celebrate the holidays in her own way. Walking back to her car, Evelyn couldn't help but glance up at her twinkling display. "Don't worry, my pretties," she murmured. "Mama's got your back." The days leading up to the neighborhood meeting were a whirlwind of activity for Evelyn. She knew she had to rally the community to her side, so she set out on a relentless campaign to win over her neighbors. First, she went door to door, armed with flyers and a passionate plea to keep her beloved Christmas lights display. She emphasized the joy it brought to the community, the sense of holiday spirit it evoked, and the fact that the HOA was legally obligated to cover the energy costs. To Evelyn's delight, many of her neighbors were receptive to her message. They echoed her frustration with the HOA's heavy-handed tactics and expressed their support for her fight. Word began to spread, and soon, Evelyn had a small army of supporters ready to take on Harold and his cronies. But the HOA board wasn't about to go down without a fight. They launched their own campaign, sending out mailers and posting signs around the neighborhood, warning residents about the excessive energy costs and eyesore of Evelyn's display. The tension in the community was palpable, and Evelyn could feel the weight of the impending showdown pressing down on her. But she refused to back down, fueled by a righteous anger and a determination to protect her beloved Christmas tradition. Finally, the day of the neighborhood meeting arrived, and the community center was packed to the brim. Evelyn took a deep breath as she stepped up to the podium, her eyes scanning the sea of faces before her. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady and confident. "As you know, the HOA has proposed an amendment to our bylaws that would effectively ban my Christmas lights display. But I'm here to tell you that this isn't just about my lights. It's about our right to celebrate the holidays in our own way." A chorus of cheers and applause erupted from the crowd, and Evelyn felt a surge of hope. "These lights bring joy and holiday cheer to our entire community," she continued. "And the HOA is legally obligated to cover the energy costs. So why should they have the power to take that away from us?" Evelyn could see Harold's face contorting with rage as she spoke, and she knew she was hitting a nerve. "I'm asking you all tonight to stand with me and vote against this amendment. Let's show the HOA that we won't be bullied, and that we cherish our holiday traditions more than their misguided attempts at aesthetic integrity." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, and Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The battle lines had been drawn, and she was ready to fight. The atmosphere in the community center was electric as the vote on the proposed bylaw amendment approached. Evelyn could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the decision hanging heavy on everyone's shoulders. As the HOA board members took their places at the front of the room, Evelyn scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces. She was relieved to see her neighbors, their expressions a mix of determination and defiance. Harold stepped up to the podium, his lips drawn into a tight, humorless smile. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "As you know, we've gathered here to discuss an important amendment to our neighborhood bylaws." Evelyn felt her heart pounding in her chest as Harold droned on, outlining the proposed changes and the problem of her extravagant Christmas display. She could see the board members shifting uncomfortably in their seats, clearly aware of the palpable resentment in the room. Finally, Harold opened the floor to discussion, and Evelyn wasted no time in taking the stage. "My fellow neighbors," she began, her voice ringing out with conviction, "we all know why we're here tonight. The HOA wants to take away our right to celebrate the holidays in our own way. They want to silence the twinkling lights that bring so much joy to our community." A chorus of cheers and applause erupted from the crowd, and Evelyn felt a surge of confidence. "But I say we won't let them. These lights are a symbol of our holiday spirit, our sense of community, and our refusal to be bullied by a group of power-hungry bureaucrats." Evelyn paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "Now, I know some of you may be concerned about the energy costs, but let me remind you, the HOA is legally obligated to cover those expenses. So why should we let them take that away from us?" The crowd erupted in cheers, and Evelyn could see the panic rising in Harold's eyes. "It's time for us to stand up and fight for our right to celebrate the holidays the way we want to," Evelyn declared, her voice ringing out with a sense of conviction. "So, I'm asking all of you to join me in voting down this proposed amendment. Let's show the HOA that we won't be silenced." The room exploded in a roar of approval, and Evelyn knew in that moment that the tide had turned. The battle lines had been drawn, and the community was firmly on her side. As the vote began, Evelyn felt a sense of anticipation and dread. This was it, the moment of truth. Whatever happened next, she was ready to face it head-on. The room fell silent as the votes were tallied, every pair of eyes fixed on the HOA board members. Evelyn held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment of truth. Finally, Harold stepped up to the podium, his face a mask of barely concealed rage. "The vote is in," he announced, his voice dripping with bitterness. "The proposed amendment has been defeated. By a margin of 72% to 28%, the residents of this community have spoken, and they want to keep Evelyn's Christmas lights display." A thunderous cheer erupted from the crowd, and Evelyn felt a surge of elation. She had done it. She had stood up to the HOA bullies and won. But the look on Harold's face told her that this war was far from over. "This isn't over, Evelyn," he spat, his eyes narrowed to slits. "Mark my words, we'll find a way to shut down your little holiday display, one way or another." Evelyn stepped forward, a triumphant smile on her face. "Go ahead and try, Harold," she challenged. "But you're going to have an entire community to answer to. And I can promise you, we won't go down without a fight." As the meeting adjourned, Evelyn was surrounded by her neighbors, their faces alight with joy and a sense of victory. They patted her on the back, thanked her for her courage, and vowed to stand by her side no matter what. Evelyn couldn't help but feel a swell of pride and gratitude. This was more than just a fight over Christmas lights. It was a fight for their community, their holiday traditions, and their right to celebrate in their own way. As she walked back to her car, Evelyn glanced up at her twinkling display, the lights shimmering in the crisp winter air. "You see, my pretties," she murmured, "Mama always comes through." But even as she savored her victory, Evelyn knew that the battle was far from over. Harold and the HOA board were not the types to give up so easily, and she knew they would be back, their sights set on destroying her beloved Christmas display. But Evelyn was ready. She had tasted the sweet flavor of triumph, and she was determined to hold onto it, no matter what the HOA threw her way. This was her fight, and she was in it to win, for herself, for her community, and for the magic of the holidays.